They said Major Kate Phoenix Morgan's fighting days were over. A shattered vertebra from an ejection seat had grounded the Air Force's most decorated female fighter pilot, relegating her to medical evacuation missions. The brass thought they were putting a legend out to pasture. They were wrong. When 8 enemy drones ambushed her lone UH-60 Blackhawk over hostile jungle, Kate had 2 choices: retreat and let 5 wounded Special Forces operators die, or remember why they called her Phoenix in the first place. What happened next would be studied in military academies for decades. In 127 seconds, a grounded fighter pilot proved that legends don't retire, they evolve. Who was Major Kate Morgan before the accident that supposedly ended her career? Why was the Air Force's deadliest pilot flying medical missions? And how could one woman in a transport helicopter outmaneuver 8 state-of-the-art combat drones? This story reveals the truth about second chances, the evolution of warfare, and the moment when a pilot's greatest defeat becomes their most legendary victory. Welcome to Phoenix Rising. Hit subscribe because what happens next will forever change your understanding of courage and innovation. Kandahar Air Base, Afghanistan. 18 months ago, Major Kate Morgan pulled the ejection handle at 15,000 feet, her F-22 Raptor disintegrating around her in a fireball of twisted metal and burning fuel. The Taliban missile had found its mark, but Kate had completed her mission. 6 enemy positions eliminated, a surrounded Marine unit saved. The ejection seat fired with explosive force, compressing her spine like an accordion. Pain shot through her back as she tumbled through the thin mountain air, her parachute deploying automatically while enemy fire erupted from below. She landed hard in rocky terrain, her legs folding beneath her as white-hot agony exploded through her lower back. Through gritted teeth, she activated her emergency beacon and waited for extraction, knowing her career was over. Present day, Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan. 0647 hours. Major Kate Phoenix Morgan, now permanently grounded from fighter operations, stood beside her UH-60 Blackhawk medical evacuation helicopter, running through her pre-flight checklist. At 34 years old, with auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun, and gray eyes that still held traces of fire, she looked nothing like the broken pilot who'd been carried off that mountain 18 months ago. The doctors had been clear: damaged L3 and L4 vertebrae, nerve compression, chronic pain, no more high-G maneuvers, no more fighter jets, medical retirement recommended. Kate had other plans. "Morning, Phoenix," called Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, her flight medic, approaching with coffee and a concerned expression. "You sure you're up for this mission? Your back's been bothering you all week." Kate accepted the coffee gratefully. "I'm fine, Rodriguez. Just some stiffness." She wasn't fine. The pain was constant now, a grinding reminder of what she'd lost. But the alternative, a desk job or medical retirement, was unthinkable. Flying medical evacuations wasn't air-to-air combat, but it was still flying, still serving. Besides, Kate added, checking her equipment harness, "it's a routine CASEVAC. In and out, no drama." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Since when is anything routine with you, ma'am?" Kate smiled grimly. "Since the Air Force decided I'm too broken to fight." What neither of them knew was that Kate's helicopter wasn't entirely standard. During the conversion to medical configuration, a sympathetic crew chief had made some modifications, keeping the aircraft's original hardpoints and adding a concealed weapons package, just in case. "Phoenix, this is operations," crackled the radio. "You have an urgent CASEVAC mission. Special Forces Team Papa 7 is down in the Kunar Valley. 5 wounded, 2 critical. They need extraction within the hour." Kate's blood went cold. The Kunar Valley was enemy territory, a maze of mountains and jungle where Taliban forces operated freely. It was also where she'd been shot down. "Operations, Phoenix. What's our escort situation?" "Negative on escort, Phoenix. All attack assets are committed to Operation Steel Thunder. You're going in alone." Rodriguez shot Kate a worried look. The Kunar Valley without escort was suicide. Even with her medical Red Cross markings, enemy forces wouldn't hesitate to shoot down an American helicopter. "Copy. Operations. Phoenix is wheels up in 5 minutes." Kate strapped into the pilot's seat, her hands automatically finding the familiar controls. The pain in her back flared as she adjusted her position, but she pushed it aside. 5 wounded soldiers were counting on her. "Rodriguez," she said, starting the engines, "make sure the medical bay is ready for multiple trauma cases, and check the emergency equipment." "Roger, ma'am. What about—" "Don't ask about things you don't want to know about," Kate interrupted, her hands dancing across the weapon system controls hidden beneath the medical equipment panels. The Blackhawk lifted off, its rotors beating the air like mechanical thunder. As they climbed into the dawn sky, Kate felt something she hadn't experienced in 18 months, the familiar rush of heading into danger. The Kunar Valley lay ahead, shrouded in morning mist and crawling with enemies who had already killed her once. But Major Kate Phoenix Morgan was about to remind the world why they'd given her that call sign and why legends don't stay dead. Kunar Valley, Afghanistan, 0734 hours. The Black Hawk thundered through the mountain passes at 200 feet, Kate weaving between peaks with the kind of precision that only comes from thousands of hours in combat zones. The Kunar Valley spread below them like a green carpet hiding countless threats. "Phoenix, this is Papa 7 Actual," came a weak voice over the emergency frequency. "We're pinned down in grid 42S UB 112457. 5 wounded. Ammunition running low. Enemy contact imminent." Kate keyed her mic. "Papa 7, this is Phoenix inbound your position. ETA 12 minutes. What's your tactical situation?" "Phoenix, we walked into an ambush. IED took out our vehicle. Small arms fire from multiple positions. We've got 2 urgent surgical, 3 priority. We're using the vehicle as cover, but we can't hold much longer." Kate studied her tactical display. The landing zone was in a small clearing surrounded by dense jungle, perfect for an ambush, but there was no alternative. "Rodriguez," she called to her medic, "prep for hot LZ extraction. Multiple trauma cases, possible contact." "Roger, ma'am. Medical bay is ready." Kate pushed the Black Hawk harder, the twin turboshaft engines screaming as they dove into the valley. The landscape blurred past, rocky outcrops, dense foliage, and the snaking brown ribbon of a river far below. That's when her threat warning system lit up like a Christmas tree. Missile lock. Missile lock. Kate's blood turned to ice. 8 contacts on her radar, closing fast from multiple directions. Not missiles, drones, state-of-the-art combat UAVs moving with coordinated precision. "Rodriguez, we've got company! 8 bandits inbound! Drone configuration!" Kate threw the Black Hawk into a violent evasive maneuver, the G-forces slamming her injured back against the seat. Pain exploded through her spine, but she fought through it, muscle memory taking over. The lead drone opened fire, 30-millimeter cannon rounds stitching the air where they'd been seconds before. Kate rolled the helicopter inverted, a maneuver that should have been impossible in a Black Hawk, and dove toward the jungle canopy. "Phoenix, what's your status?" Operations demanded over the radio. "Operations. Phoenix is under attack by 8 enemy drones, requesting immediate air support." "Negative, Phoenix. No assets available. Recommend you abort mission and return to base." Kate watched Papa 7's position on her display, then looked at the swarm of drones maneuvering for another attack. 5 wounded soldiers were dying in that jungle, and command wanted her to run. "Operations, Phoenix. I'm not leaving American soldiers to die." She killed the radio and activated the weapon system she wasn't supposed to have. Hidden beneath the medical equipment bay, 4 Hellfire missiles and a 20mm cannon swiveled to life. The targeting computer, slave to her helmet display, painted the nearest drone with a targeting reticle. "Rodriguez, strap in and hold on. We're going to war." Kate pulled the Black Hawk into a climbing turn that defied physics and aerodynamics. The first drone, expecting easy prey, flew directly into her crosshairs. "Fox 1, the Hellfire missile streaked from its concealed launcher, covering the distance to the drone in 3 seconds. The enemy UAV disintegrated in a ball of fire and shrapnel. 7 drones left, but now they knew she was armed, and they were adapting. "Unknown aircraft, you are flying a medical evacuation helicopter," came a voice with a Middle Eastern accent. "Surrender now and we will allow you to leave." Kate's response was to put another Hellfire into the second drone. "Phoenix to Papa 7, she called over the tactical net. "Hold your position. The cavalry is coming, and she's pissed off." What followed would be remembered as the Battle of Kunar Valley, 2 minutes and 7 seconds of aerial combat that redefined what was possible in rotary wing warfare. Kate threw the Black Hawk through maneuvers that shouldn't have been survivable. She used the mountain terrain like a fighter pilot, popping up from behind ridgelines to engage targets before disappearing into valleys. The drones, programmed for conventional helicopter tactics, struggled to track her impossible flight path. "Pull up! Pull up! Terrain ahead." Kate ignored the ground collision warning, skimming the Black Hawk between trees with inches to spare. A drone following her clipped a branch and tumbled into the forest. 6 left. Her back was screaming in agony, nerve damage sending lightning bolts of pain through her legs. But Kate felt more alive than she had since the ejection. This was what she was born to do. The remaining drones split up, trying to bracket her position. Kate responded by doing something no helicopter pilot had ever attempted. She performed a loop. The Black Hawk traced a perfect circle through the sky, its rotor disc generating lift in ways that violated every textbook. At the top of the loop, inverted and pulling negative Gs, Kate fired her remaining 2 Hellfires simultaneously. 2 more drones exploded. 4 left, and Kate was out of missiles. Time for the hard way. Kunar Valley, Afghanistan. 0747 hours. Kate rolled the Black Hawk level, her hidden 20mm cannon tracking the nearest drone. 4 enemies remained, and they were learning fast. The lead UAV pulled into a vertical climb, trying to gain altitude advantage, while its wingman dove low to attack from below. Military doctrine said helicopters couldn't dogfight. Kate had never read that particular manual. "Phoenix, this is Papa 7. The voice was desperate now. "We're taking heavy fire. Where's our extraction?" 2 minutes out, Papa 7, keep your heads down." Kate pulled the cyclic hard left, the Black Hawk sliding sideways through the air like a gymnast. The diving drone's burst of cannon fire passed harmlessly through empty sky as Kate lined up her shot. The 20mm cannon spoke once, a 3-round burst that shredded the drone's composite airframe. Burning fragments tumbled into the valley below. 3 left, but Kate's unconventional maneuvering was taking its toll. Her damaged spine felt like molten metal, and sweat poured down her face despite the cool mountain air. Worse, the Black Hawk's engines were redlining from the extreme maneuvers. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called from the cabin, "whatever you're doing up there, the bird's not going to take much more." Kate knew she was pushing the helicopter beyond its limits, but the alternative was unthinkable. The remaining 3 drones had learned from their fallen comrades. They spread out in a triangular formation, attacking from different angles simultaneously. Kate couldn't engage all 3 at once, unless Kate chopped power and dropped the collective, sending the Black Hawk into an autorotative descent, essentially a controlled crash. The sudden maneuver caught the drones off guard, as their target seemed to fall out of the sky. At 50 feet above the jungle canopy, Kate pulled power and arrested the descent. The helicopter's rotor wash bent trees and scattered debris as she hovered in the green hell below. "Where did she go?" came the confused voice over the enemy frequency. Kate smiled grimly and activated her helmet's targeting system. Through the canopy above, she could see the 3 drones circling, searching for their vanished prey. She selected the nearest target and pulled the trigger. The 20mm cannon's muzzle flash strobed through the jungle, the high explosive rounds reaching their target before the sound arrived. The drone disintegrated in midair, its burning wreckage showering the forest. 2 left, but Kate's position was compromised. The remaining drones dove toward her muzzle flash, their own cannons spitting death. Kate pulled pitch and shot up through the canopy like a rocket, branches and leaves exploding around the rotor disc. She burst into clear sky just as the drone's fire shredded the trees where she'd been hiding. Now it was a knife fight. The first drone came at her head-on, cannon blazing. Kate held her course until the last second, then rolled inverted and pulled through, her rotor disc missing the enemy by inches. As the drone flashed overhead, Kate rolled upright and put a burst into its engine bay. It fell burning into the valley. 1 drone left, but this pilot was different, better. As Kate maneuvered for position, the final drone matched her move for move, neither pilot able to gain advantage. "You are skilled," came the voice over the radio, "but your helicopter cannot sustain this combat much longer." He was right. Kate could feel the Black Hawk system struggling, warning lights flashing across her instrument panel. She had maybe 30 seconds of hard maneuvering left before catastrophic failure. The drone pilot knew it too. He was playing for time, keeping his distance while Kate's aircraft slowly destroyed itself. "Phoenix, this is Papa 7. Enemy ground forces are massing for final assault. We need extraction now." Kate looked at her fuel gauge, her warning lights, the final drone circling just out of cannon range. In 30 seconds she'd be forced to land, if the helicopter held together that long. That's when she remembered something her old flight instructor had told her. When you can't outfly them, outthink them. Kate keyed her radio to the emergency frequency, the one the enemy was monitoring. "Mayday! Mayday! Phoenix is going down. Engines failing. Losing control." She chopped power and put the Black Hawk into a violent spiral, spinning toward the ground like a falling leaf. Smoke poured from her exhaust as she deliberately overstressed the engines. The enemy pilot took the bait. Thinking his quarry was finished, the drone dove in for the kill shot. Kate let him get close, very close. At the last second, she pulled power and stopped the spiral. The Black Hawk snapped level just as the diving drone overshot. Kate's targeting computer locked on. "Gotcha." The 20mm cannon sent a stream of fire into the drone's cockpit section. The UAV cartwheeled through the sky, its control systems shattered, before slamming into a rocky cliff face. Silence filled the radio. 8 drones down. 0 casualties. "Phoenix, this is operations. Say status." Kate keyed her mic, her voice steady despite the pain coursing through her body. "Operations, Phoenix. 8 bandits down. Proceeding to extract Papa 7. There was a long pause. "Phoenix, did you just say 8 bandits down?" "Affirmative, operations. Now if you'll excuse me, I have wounded soldiers to collect." Kate turned toward Papa 7's position, the Black Hawk limping through the sky on damaged systems and sheer willpower. The legend of Phoenix was about to be reborn. Papa 7's position, Kunar Valley, 0752 hours. Kate brought the smoking Black Hawk into the tiny clearing where Papa 7 had made their stand. The helicopter touched down hard, its damaged landing gear protesting under the weight. Steam and smoke poured from the engine compartments, but she'd made it. Rodriguez, medical bay ready? Ready, ma'am. Let's get these heroes home. The 5 Special Forces operators were in bad shape. 2 had penetrating chest wounds from shrapnel. Another had a compound leg fracture, and all bore the glazed look of men who'd stared death in the face and somehow survived. Phoenix, gasped the team leader, a grizzled sergeant with a blood-soaked bandage around his head. We heard the gunfire. What happened up there? Kate helped load the first casualty into the helicopter. Just some target practice, Sergeant. Nothing to worry about. As Rodriguez worked to stabilize the wounded, Kate ran her post-combat checks. The helicopter was barely airworthy, hydraulic pressure dropping, engine temperatures in the red, multiple system warnings flashing. They had maybe 20 minutes of flight time before complete failure. Phoenix, this is operations. We show multiple enemy ground units converging on your position. Recommend immediate departure. Kate didn't need the warning. Through the trees, she could see movement. Dozens of fighters moving to surround the landing zone. The ambush that had trapped Papa 7 was expanding to include her. Rodriguez, how long until you can move the critical patients? 2 minutes, ma'am, but they need surgery fast. Kate watched the enemy positions through her weapons sight. Maybe 50 fighters equipped with RPGs and heavy machine guns. If they got those weapons trained on the helicopter before she could lift off. Sergeant, she called to the team leader. Can your men fight? Ma'am, we're down to our last magazines and I don't need you to win. I just need you to keep their heads down for 60 seconds. The sergeant understood immediately. He grabbed his rifle and motioned to his remaining able-bodied men. You heard the lady. Set up a perimeter. Buy her time to get our wounded out. Kate spooled up the engines, watching her temperatures climb into dangerous territory. The helicopter shuddered and bucked, barely holding together. Ma'am, Rodriguez called. They're loaded, but the criticals won't survive much more stress. Kate looked at her options. A straight takeoff would put them directly into enemy fire. The helicopter wouldn't survive the concentrated barrage, and her wounded passengers would die. But there was another way, a way that would require everything she'd learned in 18 months of medical missions and a lifetime of aerial combat. Kate activated her remaining systems, including some Papa 7 didn't know she had. Sergeant, when I tell you, have your men mark the enemy positions with smoke grenades. All of them. Ma'am? Trust me. Kate lifted the Black Hawk into a hover, then did something no medical evacuation pilot had ever attempted. She spun the helicopter on its axis, using the rotor wash to create a massive dust cloud while simultaneously engaging targets with her cannon. The 20mm gun spoke in controlled bursts, each shot precisely aimed at enemy positions that would threaten their escape route. Not to kill. Medical pilots weren't supposed to have guns, but to suppress. Smoke out, the sergeant called. Colored smoke grenades popped throughout the jungle, marking enemy positions. Kate used her helmet display to paint each target, then rolled the Black Hawk into an attack run that belonged in an Apache, not a medical helicopter. Rodriguez, hold on to the patients. We're going dynamic. Kate pulled the helicopter through a series of nap-of-the-earth maneuvers, using terrain masking to avoid enemy fire while her cannon kept hostile heads down. The wounded soldiers, secured in the medical bay's shock-absorbing stretchers, rode out the violent maneuvering as Rodriguez worked to keep them stable. In 90 seconds, Kate had suppressed a reinforced company of enemy fighters, extracted 5 wounded soldiers, and demonstrated flight techniques that would be classified and studied for decades. As they climbed out of the valley, leaving the enemy positions smoking behind them, Kate felt something she hadn't experienced since her ejection. Pride. Phoenix, this is operations. Multiple aircraft are inbound to investigate the engagement. What's your status? Kate looked back at Rodriguez, who was working frantically to save the critical patients, then at her instrument panel, where warning lights painted the cockpit red. Operations. Phoenix is inbound with 5 urgent casualties. Request priority landing and full trauma team standing by. Copy, Phoenix. Also be advised, General Morrison wants a full debrief on your engagement. Kate smiled grimly. General Morrison was the wing commander and the man who'd tried to force her into medical retirement. Tell the general I'll be happy to discuss today's medical evacuation mission. Medical evacuation? Phoenix, we monitored 8 shoot-downs and a ground attack. Operations. I'm a medical pilot. All I did was pick up some wounded soldiers. There was a long pause. Copy, Phoenix. Medical mission understood. Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan. 6 hours later, Kate stood in the base hospital, still in her flight suit, watching through the observation window as surgeons worked to save Papa Seven's wounded. All 5 would live, barely, but they'd live. Major Morgan. Kate turned to find General Morrison approaching, flanked by 2 colonels and a civilian in an expensive suit. The general's expression was unreadable. "General, walk with me." They moved to a quiet corner of the hospital, away from the bustle of medical personnel. General Morrison studied Kate for a long moment before speaking. 8 drones, Major. 8 state-of-the-art combat UAVs, shot down by a medical evacuation helicopter. Kate kept her expression neutral. "I don't know what you mean, sir. I flew a medical mission to extract wounded soldiers." "Uh-huh." The general pulled out a tablet and showed her radar tracks. "These are your flight patterns over the Kunar Valley. No medical helicopter has ever maneuvered like this. With respect, sir, no medical helicopter has ever been attacked by 8 drones." General Morrison smiled, the first time Kate had seen him do so since her injury. "Major, what you did today was impossible, and I've seen the gun camera footage from those drones." Kate's blood went cold. "If they had video evidence of her weapon systems—" "Don't worry," the general continued. "The footage shows a medical helicopter defending itself and its patients. Nothing more." The civilian stepped forward. "Major Morgan, I'm Director James Crawford from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. We've been following your career with great interest." "Sir, Major, what you accomplished today wasn't just combat excellence, it was innovation. You proved that the line between medical and combat operations doesn't exist when American lives are at stake." General Morrison nodded. "Kate, we're standing up a new unit. Officially, it's called Medical Support Aviation. Unofficially, well, let's just say you'll be flying helicopters that can defend themselves." Kate felt her heart racing. "Are you offering me command of the unit?" The general interrupted. "The Air Force needs pilots who can think outside the box, who can take a medical helicopter and turn it into a weapon system when necessary." Crawford added, "You'll be testing new concepts, new equipment, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in combat aviation." Kate looked back at the surgical suites, where 5 soldiers were alive because she'd refused to abandon them. Then she thought of her damaged spine, the constant pain, the limitations the doctors had imposed. "What about my medical restrictions?" General Morrison smiled again. "Major, any pilot who can outfight 8 drones in a transport helicopter doesn't have restrictions. She has capabilities we didn't know existed." Kate felt something stirring inside her, something that had been dormant since the ejection. Purpose, mission, the chance to serve at the highest level again. "When do I start?" "You already have," Crawford said. "Your actions today are being classified and studied, but the lessons learned will save American lives for decades to come." 3 months later, Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. Colonel Kate Phoenix Morgan, promoted after the Kunar Valley action, stood before a class of 20 elite pilots from across the military branches. Behind her, a specially modified Black Hawk displayed the latest in defensive systems integration. "My name is Colonel Morgan," she began, "and I'm going to teach you how to turn any aircraft into a weapons platform when American lives are at stake." A young Navy pilot raised his hand. "Colonel, is it true you shot down 8 drones with a medical helicopter?" Kate smiled, her hand unconsciously touching the small of her back where the pain still lingered. "Lieutenant, I'm going to teach you something more important than that. I'm going to teach you that there are no unarmed aircraft. Only unarmed pilots." She gestured to the modified helicopter. "Every airframe in the U.S. inventory can be weaponized with the right mindset and equipment. Your job is to think beyond the mission you're assigned and prepare for the mission you might face." An Army pilot asked, "What's the most important quality in a combat aviator?" Kate thought of the moment in the Kunar Valley when she'd chosen to fight rather than flee. Despite her injuries and limitations. Adaptability. The willingness to evolve beyond your designated role when the situation demands it. She walked to the window overlooking the flight line, where a dozen different helicopter types sat ready for training. Out there, you see transport aircraft, medical helicopters, search and rescue birds. But in the right hands, they're all combat platforms waiting to be unleashed. Kate turned back to the class. "The enemy will always underestimate pilots flying non-combat missions. That's their mistake, and your advantage." A Marine pilot called out, "Colonel, what happened to the pilot who shot down 8 drones?" Kate's smile widened. She realized that being grounded doesn't mean you stop flying. It means you learn to fly better. Outside, the Nevada sun painted the desert gold, and in the distance a Black Hawk lifted off for another training mission. At its controls sat a pilot who had learned Kate's lessons, that legends aren't born from perfect conditions, but from impossible circumstances. That afternoon, Kate received a message that made her day complete. It was from Papa Seven's team leader, now recovered and back on active duty. Phoenix, heard about your new command. The boys and I wanted you to know. There's no such thing as just a medical pilot. Some angels carry weapons. Thanks for proving it. Sergeant First Class Martinez, Papa 7. Kate saved the message and looked out at her training squadron. Young pilots learning that the greatest weapon in any aircraft wasn't technology. It was the refusal to accept defeat when American lives hung in the balance. Major Kate Phoenix Morgan had crashed and burned in the mountains of Afghanistan, but Colonel Kate Morgan had risen from those ashes stronger, more innovative, and deadlier than ever. Sometimes the best way to find your wings again is to realize they were never really broken, just waiting for the right moment to spread. And in the skies over America's training ranges, a new generation of pilots was learning to fly like Phoenix, impossible, unstoppable, and utterly unwilling to abandon the fight. The legend lived on, a story about resilience, innovation, and the moment when limitations become launching pads for greatness. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't avoiding the crash, it's learning to fly again with broken wings.